Hi again, friends. Ed Harrold here. Super excited to spend the next few minutes of our lives together. We have a great guest with us this week, and buckle up because it's going to be a great hour. So, welcome to our Life with Breath podcast series. Welcome back, friends. So good to be with you on this beautiful fall we're having in 2021 on planet Earth. Today, we have the amazing Cara Bradley with us, and she's just a wealth of wisdom, knowledge, compassion, experience, and she's just a master teacher of many different things. And I'm really honored to spend a little bit of time having a conversation with this great soul. To begin with, let's get ourselves grounded. Let's really drop into our body. So if we could just take a few minutes and turn off the external world as much as we can and tune our awareness to this breath of ours, this opportunity, this energetic charge of our awareness, and just drop into our body. So if you'd like, just let your eyes close. Drop any old stressors off the trunk of the neck or the shoulders. Let it roll down your back. Allow your feet to feel the support of Mother Earth, this great planet that we've all been gifted to be on during these transformational times. And just press your feet down like you're going to stand up. And as soon as you do that, notice the spine becomes straight, the central nervous system turns on, the heart cracks open, and we're completely present. Now, bringing your awareness to softening the face, allowing the forebrain area to be completely relaxed. And notice your eyes inside the sockets. If you just move your eyes slightly, gently inside your sockets, notice you can tune into a lighter version of ourselves, something different than the normal narrative. Just simple eye movement. Shifting your awareness to your low jaw, separating the teeth a fraction of an inch, allowing the tongue to rest on the upper palate, keeping the nasal channels open. Shifting your awareness down into your voice box, the larynx, the pharynx, the vocal cords. And let's go to yoga, and let's bring up the ocean-sounding breath, this ujjayi breath. Begin to pull ourselves present. Begin to slow the breath down and allow the breath to nurture the inner world from the soles of our feet to the crown of our head. Being grateful for the opportunity just to be us today. And as you begin to slow the breath down, notice your neurochemistry will shift. Hormonal secretions will shift. Blood pressure will reboot and will become more energy efficient. If you're exhaling longer than your inhale, you're toning down the amygdala. Your body is burning fat as its primary fuel source. We're saving our precious glycogen and sugars for the brain, and we're becoming energy efficient. Now, how comfortable can you get inside your uniform, inside your body? How comfortable can you get with that roommate in between your ears? And as you go deeper, you begin to notice everything is okay. Everything is okay. Press your right foot down into the earth a little stronger than your left. Focus your awareness on your left prefrontal cortex and feel the connection between the lower right side of the body and the upper left side of the brain. Stabilize that area. And inhale, hold the breath in for 2. Exhale, hold the breath out for 2. And focus your mind on the various platforms that we host in our left prefrontal lobe while the right foot is pressing below the floor. stabilizing the analytical mind. Let time begin to dilate as you perceive it. Know that you're closer to every goal than you can possibly even imagine. And then relax the right foot and the left brain. Shift your awareness over to that beautiful left leg of yours and press that left foot down. Anchor that left foot down into the earth. Shift your mental awareness into the right prefrontal lobe. Now, you might notice immediately the sensations, the visualizations are different there. That's okay. And then go back to that same breathing exercise of inhale, hold for 2. Exhale, hold for 2. Lower left is pressing down. Mental mind exploring the right prefrontal lobe. Try this for a minute. And then relax and bring yourself back. Turn your palms up. Notice if anything feels different. And let's tune your awareness to your heart, the real reason why we're all coming together today. Notice the communication in your heart, the voice in your heart. It might be a little different than the one we pick up between our ears, and that's okay. And on the next inhale, really fill your lungs. Imagine just this ancient old life jacket, these 2 huge buoys, these lungs, floating our awareness through space. And just exhale out through the mouth with a sigh, break the sound barrier. Oh, yeah. And let your eyes open when you're ready. And welcome, Cara Bradley.
Thank you, Ed. I noticed that I have to take off my sweater after that.
Yeah, there's a lot of energy.
Fabulous to see you.
You also. So for folks that might be living under a rock, might not be aware of Cara Bradley, but she is a leading authority of mental fitness, having led thousands through her signature strategies of work and play flow. Drawing on 30 plus years of experience in body-brain training with Fortune 500 companies, startups, and premier college sports teams, her work includes science-based backed tools, including the nervous system, flow states, mindfulness training, in addition to strategies to optimize the gut-brain connection. You know, Cara's the author of On the Verge, Wake Up, Show Up, and Shine. And you can see on your screen, there's the book on the upper right side. Make sure you get out there and get that book, because that book is going to change your life. And On the Verge is a call to break free from your busy mind and wake up to right now, fully engaged, ready to shine, and discover how to shift beyond crazy busy into a high definition, high voltage living. I love that. Welcome, Cara.
Thank you. Thank you. So good to be here.
What's going on in your world these days, beautiful?
Oh, wow. High definition. That's it, Ed. And I know that you and Wendy get that, living in high definition, in with high voltage energy. It sounds so cliche, and my daughters who are in their mid-20s will roll their eyes, but that's it. You know, when our bodies and our minds are in sync and our systems are working in synergy, we experience everything more vividly, you know, with
Yeah.
this energy that's just woo. So that's what's happening.
Now, I met you several years ago when you were leading yoga sessions, and you had the Verge Yoga Studio outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And I remember every time I drove past that place, there was a line all the way down to Delaware. And you had about 100 classes a week, and it was high, talk about high energy. How did you get involved? Well, first of all, your personal experience, like how did you stagger into the yoga thing like we all did at some point? And then where did that entrepreneur thing come in where you just blew it out like huge?
Well, thank you. Thanks. Yeah, those were the days. I mean, things have changed a little bit because of the last 18 months, but um, where I started my introspection and my search, if you will, was on the ice. So I was a figure skater. I wasn't a good figure skater. You never heard of me out there, but I skated a lot and I loved it. And we used to do something on the ice back then called figures, which a young skater would be given a patch of ice, and we had a scribe, which was like this really big compass, and we would scribe a figure eight on the ice. And then for an hour, we would have to trace that figure eight on an outer edge and inner edge, going forward, going backward. And they've done away with figures in the sport because I think there was just so much protest because everybody hated figures.
Mm-hmm.
I loved figures. I loved it as a 12-year-old to be on the ice. What I learned back then, of course I didn't have the words to it, was that when I was thinking about something else, right? When I was thinking about school or whatever, a boy, I would go flat on my edge or my blade. And so I learned back then there was definitely something about thoughts and body that that was a connection there. And
Mm-hmm.
so, throughout my life as an athlete, I've always just tapped back into that, but I didn't have words to it. I didn't have disciplines. I didn't know. And I remember walking into a library when I was in my early 20s and looking up, mental strength or mental training. And I found books on yoga and meditation. And that's honestly how I stepped into it all.
That's amazing. And if I visualize the figures, the figure eights, that on its own, just moving your body in that particular rhythm, wouldn't that create a light flow state?
Oh, totally.
Yeah, you could get off on that.
Totally. And so what happened was I ran track in college. Again, I was not very good. I was kind of middle of the pack, 800. And I had a full out high flow state in my last race. And I write about it in the intro to the book. And what I realized after that, because I blew seconds off my 800, and I was like, holy crap, like I had this in me my whole career, and I tapped into it my last race. But what I realized was that feeling, that body mind state was really, really familiar. And it traced back to my time on the ice. So I was like, wait a second, I've been here before. And the thing is, kids live in flow. I mean, they're in flow most of the time.
Right.
I don't even, nobody's done any research on it, but I would imagine like nowadays compared to when we were kids, there's less and less, or it ends earlier and earlier. But, we experience that childlike, experience, like you were saying before, where time dilates, where we're out of body, where our senses are really magnified. So the flow states are places we've all been, and we access them differently. We have different triggers and different activities that get us into flow.
Yeah. So before we get a little deeper into this, can you tell folks a little bit about what it was like to run a studio where you had thousands of students coming in and out every week, and you're doing yoga teacher trainings, cultivating the seeds, you're bringing in people from all walks of life that most of them don't have any idea why we're even doing it. They just heard through word of mouth that you feel great when you leave. How was that experience for your soul and your heart?
Oh boy, that's a loaded question. I mean, the
Yeah.
first thing that comes to mind, honestly, is stress. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it was stressful. I mean, you probably saw, you were at Verge during, some of our prime years where we had 3 yoga rooms going at the same time. We had a meditation school and teacher training and workshops. It was busy. And I'm a teacher. I mean, I can't not teach. So I was still
Mm-hmm.
teaching 5, 6 classes a week in addition to, managing 30 teachers and 100 classes a week.
Wow.
It was stressful, Ed. I mean, it was there are a few of us out there that are yoga studio owners, that are, really kind of paisans. I'm Italian. We get each other. We recognize, people think it's all, love and bliss. But at the end of the day, and this is the honest truth, at the end of the day, I always went to bed and put my head on the pillow and knew in my heart that we had changed lives that day, that somebody was going to bed having treated their child better or their partner better,
Right.
or having done the right thing. So, there's a lot of buildup of that karma or merit, as we say in the Buddhist world, right? There's a lot of merit that was built up, even though it was stressful.
But what I really enjoyed about being in the studio owner role was, you'd hear people all the time in their transformational process. And, outside of the yoga world, they'd be going to therapy over here, or they had, a gym membership over here, and they'd be doing all sorts of other relational things. But when they came to our studios, it was like, in an hour or 90 minutes, you could get everything you needed to unload what needed to be unloaded. You could pack on what needed to be there. You're walking a little taller. You're breathing a little lighter. You're lighthearted in your thoughts, and it all happened in like this hour or 90-minute incubator. And it was, to me, who's very time, I'm very time, oriented. I never saw a bigger bang for time and a buck than what we were offering, and that really made me feel great.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we would say it's the cheapest form of therapy. You come in for
Yeah.
an hour, $15, whatever it costs you. Yeah, for sure. And what's interesting, Ed, is, and I remember one of my first yoga teachers, Beryl Bender Birch, she would
Hmm.
say that a yoga practice, if taught properly, right, or executed well, was really a breathing practice with some yoga poses thrown in. And I
Right.
never forgot that. And that's, I know it's where you lead from, and it's certainly where I led from. The breath was queen. I would say the breath is queen, and everything else is just ways to manipulate breath and play with experience.
Well, I love that definition. The breath is queen. You
Mhm.
know, the queen births new awarenesses. The queen energy, that feminine energy, it doesn't do well with stupid. It really, it's not very patient, and it constantly pushes us up against some of those maybe dysfunctional male patterns of energy that we kind of picked up when we were younger, because it was such a dominant male culture society. And when we were doing, the yoga, it still was fairly new. I mean, it wasn't main. I mean, it was still woo woo. Like, there wasn't the science behind it. There wasn't the science behind the breath. The only thing we really knew was that these people with long hair who practiced meditation were really kind, and they could let stuff slide. They could be in a traffic jam and not give you any hand signals. They just, we knew that the meditation worked. So how could we blend the breath with the postures to improve the quality of meditation? And it still is just a great gift even today.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's another element I think that is often overlooked, and there hasn't been a lot of research done on it yet, but I think it is one of the key variables in our ability to regulate ourselves, and that's rhythm. Rhythm
Hmm.
is so undervalued. Yet, when we have an infant that is crying, we rock the infant
Hmm.
slowly. So if you think about a well-crafted yoga class or breath practice, or there's a rhythm to it, and it's that rhythm that is down regulating or up regulating your autonomic nervous system, just like
Hmm.
a walk or a run or rowing or cycling or sweeping or knitting. I mean, there's rhythm everywhere. So, I mean, I love the breath for that. And so what I would often say and still do is, synchronizing mind and body with breath and rhythm. That's like your golden ticket.
Right. Right. And we have to understand that every day there's going to be points where we are going to go out of rhythm. There's going to be a mental perception that there's resistance to what our desired goal is. And having some tools in your toolbox to be prepared for these the mental perception or the physical perception of non-rhythmic moments. What are some of the things that you do to bring yourself back into rhythm when you begin to notice these nasty older emotions or old subconscious perceptions kind of puke over the present moment?
That's a good way of putting it. Hey, it's going to happen. And
Right.
it would be, I don't want to say a boring life, but if there was nothing, I think about the Truman Show, right? If it was always the same, everything happening in the same way all the time, there would be no, zest to life. So it's going to happen. You're going to be pulled off, every minute. I mean, unless you're in deep in practice, there's going to be some distraction or thought or memory or physical, some pain or something that's going to pull you out
Right.
of that coherent state. So, you want to have a toolbox of regulation tools, right? I call them mini wins. I talk about this a lot, especially in the workplace. All of these things that you can do moment to moment to at least just bring you back. And it doesn't mean bringing you back to this, blissed out state where nothing matters. It just means bringing you back to present moment where you can make an honest decision, a heartfelt decision and how to move into the next moment. And that's really what the verge is about. The word verge is one of my favorite words. So
Yeah.
I'd love to explain it a little bit if
Let's go.
Yeah.
Verge.
So years ago, I opened the studio in 2004, and years before, my husband had gone and spent like a month in the Amazon with some indigenous communities down there. And he came back and he was sitting around. We've always been, big self-help. We started with Tony Robbins and, worked our way through. And he was talking about how when they would be out on the boats, on the canoes, they would often stop at these places on the land where the rivers would come together, and they would stop and there would be almost like a sacred moment. And these places where ecosystems come together are called verges. The verge of the edge of the land where the rivers meet. And science shows that wildlife and animal life are at their most diverse there on the verge. And I remember I stopped him. I said, wait a second, explain that again. And then I went on to look at the research. And so on the verge, at these places where systems come together and converge, life is at its most alive, right? And I was like, holy crap, like, where is the verge in Pennsylvania? Like, I want to go there. I want to live. Can we live there on the verge? What does it mean to be at a place here, where, and I would imagine, you've got ley lines crossing, and it could be sort of the same thing. But what it came back to, and this was way before I wrote the book on the verge, but when I named this yoga studio Verge Yoga, it was truly because I wanted to create a space for people to come to feel fully alive, to realize potential, to awaken to some dormant capacity within them. And so I have a real love for that word.
Boy, I never thought of it that way. And that's pretty deep, but it's practical in the way that you can absorb it, which I think is so important when we're communicating, with others. I think that having the ability, to be functional with our communication so that everybody gets it. The verge is just something that I'm going to just watch in my meditation for a while now, because I think there's a lot there. And both in the sense that we all have a resistance sometimes of what might happen, even though we're desperately trying for our goal. And there's all sorts of energy being scattered, and the mind, we're out of our body. But when we can get into that verge of nature and let nature support us, and we can get out of the way, all of a sudden we're swept right into that next flow.
Yeah. Yeah. And what you're saying is And you don't even have to be in a place, because actually the verge is happening in each moment. When we are present, we are our most powerful. Period, hands down, end of story. When we are fully grounded right here, not worrying about the next word coming out of your mouth, not thinking about what you just said and how it landed if it was awkward, but right here, allowing the life force to move through you and speak through you, that is where we are most powerful. So we can be on the verge moment to moment. There's always another opportunity to be in that place where, phew, life comes through you. I remember earlier, on in my career, in my journey, reading The Power of Now is a big book in my life early on. And I remember Eckhart Tolle saying that words spoken in presence have transformative power. And as a teacher, I mean, I would remind myself of that every single yoga class before I rang that bell. Words
Right.
spoken in the present moment have transformative power. I don't need to script anything. I just need to be present, because I know and trust. And over the years, I've learned to trust that what comes out will be precisely what's needed to be said in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah, that is just well said. That is so beautiful. I was just thinking as you were speaking, I was thinking about when I was a kid. I used to go up to New York City and go to the opera. And my family had an opera background. And these folks would be in the present moment. They had these huge thoracic diaphragms that kept them in the gut brain, and they could speak these words in any language. Like a lot of it was just Spanish or French or Italian. I didn't even know the words. But by the time the show was over, I was in tears, and I had no idea why. But you're having such a deep visceral experience of being present with the presenter, who's completely present, immersed in that role, and it's coming from the gut through the throat. It just makes a lot more sense now.
Wow. Yes. And I'm particularly interested in the voice when it comes to the nervous system. And something you
Mm-hmm.
just said really rang true. I've done a deep dive into polyvagal theory and Stephen Porges's work, and
Beautiful.
actually had the opportunity to interview him once. And we talked about the voice because, and this is something that may be kind of off script, but there is no script, is that, we read each other like animals. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we're able to read through nonverbal communication, but we're
Mm-hmm.
also able to read each other through the tone of our voice.
Mm-hmm.
And if I am nervous, which I'm not right now, very
Mm-hmm.
comfortable with you, and this is my natural speaking voice. But if I was nervous, or a new teacher, because I would work with yoga teachers like this a lot, you could tell in their voice, because their
Mm-hmm.
nervous system is in a slightly stressed state. So the nervous
Mm-hmm.
system changes the vocal tone. And we're able to read each other like that all the time,
Right.
on the phone, in stores, in a meeting. So I think that we need, one of my favorite quotes is from Emerson. Who you are speaks so loudly, I can't
Mm-hmm.
hear what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I could be talking to you in another language, and but yet you are still resonating because of the depth of my voice, and the presence that's being
Mm-hmm.
moved through it. Meanwhile, we could be at a job interview, and I could have this little squeaky high little tinny voice, and you, as the interviewee, could say, whoa, she's like really insecure. I don't think she's right for this job, even if I had all the right answers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the throat. When I started studying the yoga philosophies and the ancient texts and all, in the West, I never thought there was anything in the throat other than in the neck area. It was just something to carry, allow the head to be hooked onto the body. And, as we began to look in some of the Eastern arts and Oriental medicine, there is so much that makes up the throat area, not just from the physiological standpoint, but also our psychological makeup of ourselves and how we allow the world to see us. And all this is taking place at light speed around the vibration between our heart and our brain. And you start to think about how the breath interacts with those two amazing organs, and like the throat. Like, who would have thought, like, the throat, the thyroid would play such a huge role to our energy levels, our ability to be present and be self-regulating, while at the same time really being in a good flowing internal narrative with our voice.
Mm.
You know, there's also a great set of ears in the vocal cords, because we're always judging our speech. You know, did I say the right thing? Was that cool? I shouldn't have said that. And over a period of time, you begin to see how the energy gets stuck in the throat. And, you know, throat issues, you know, they begin to either resonate down lower. You'll find like arthritis or leaky gut, or weak digestion, or low energy, you know, stuff like that. Or you could see it up in the brain, where there's always this, seems to be this imaginary marker that we have to jump over to be in a good space all the time. Yeah, the throat's amazing.
Yeah, and one of the simplest little tools that we can use to tone the vagal nerve, the vagus nerve, is just to hum.
Yeah.
Humming or om, right?
Yeah.
Chanting has incredible impact on our vagus nerve, which goes the wandering nerve all throughout the body, down deep into the gut microbiome. So it's all interconnected. It's so fascinating.
Yeah, it's interesting. Back in the day, before whatever this thing is going on, when you used to travel to companies and present workshops, you know, I was always mindful of, you know, the sound of om, but I didn't want to bring that into the corporate setting because that might not be appropriate. So I could still get the same vibration by simply using A, E, I, O, or U, and just kind of get it into the Western model, because I'm still getting that tone, I'm still getting that vibration. And you'd get folks toning around the corporate table. And like the first couple of times, it'd be a little bumpy. But then all of a sudden, it was like a metronome. Everybody was going in it together. And they'd had this amazing thing where everybody would come together. All the drama would fall away, the personal separation stories. There'd be no drama. And then somebody would go, you know, I can't do this at my workstation. I said, but you can chant those sounds silently, and you're going to get the same effect. And no one's even going to know you're doing it. And it was like all these light bulbs went off, the Christmas lights went up, and it was just like,
That's great.
you know, it was just like the toning. Sometimes the simplest things bring us the greatest results.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, here's the thing, Ed, and I know because of the work that you've done, I've thought about this often. You know, the simplest things are the ones that are often the most effective, and the simplest things are often the ones that are free. And because of the culture that we live in, that things need to be packaged and sold very skillfully, the things that are free and effective are just stepped over. You know, we start to believe that, you know, the gadget is more important than what is free and right in front of our nose. But I think the tides are turning. I really do feel like, you know, COVID has shifted people, you know, just the mere fact that we couldn't do the things that we used to do and started to rely so much more on the natural things and the simple free tools. I think that, you know, the psyche is changing a little bit, which is great.
Yeah, I really like simple things. I love simplicity. I know that myself, when I'm feeling stressed or my energy's low or I'm just having one of these days absent in my heart, there's a part of my brain, for it to make me feel good about myself, I need to take something simple and I need to complicate it. And the more complicated I can make it, then my ego will tell me, you know, you're okay now. And, you know, I see that out in clients too, where, you know, they're exhausted, they're not sleeping at night, they're putting things in their body they shouldn't. And, you know, they tell themselves subconsciously that everything needs to be complicated. You need to be Albert Einstein every day, and, you know, E equals MC squared for you to have any type of a value. And we're forgetting as much as this is super complicated and we're never going to understand it, the fundamental stuff still applies that we were taught as a kid. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. Early to bed, early to rise. All these simple little things that our grandparents taught us are fundamental to getting it together in 2021.
Absolutely. I was raised, I'm Italian. My 4 grandparents were from Italy. And so I was raised very, very Italian. I didn't even realize it. But, it was truly everything in moderation. It was, and I was brought up very close to, what is in season, eat what is in season, and all of that. And so I have, I'm very grateful for that I was able to use that, stand on the shoulders of my nonnas and my nonna and my nonni, and move forward to share just practical practices with the world. And, I think down deep in my heart, when I think about why I do what I do, sometimes you wake up, you're like, what am I doing? How did I complicate my life so much? It really always comes back to, if I could share, whatever I have to help somebody trust themselves, trust their intelligence, trust their body's intelligence to find balance, to heal itself. Just trust in yourself that you have absolutely everything you need. Then, my work here will be done if I can just help a couple of people do that.
We don't hear a lot of the word trust anymore, do we? And look at the predicament that we're in. There's no eye contact. Everybody's got their head down, looking at their phone. They're walking at the speed of light, going through traffic. You can just go through a driving experience somewhere in America, in the morning, early morning or late afternoon, and you can begin to see that we're going through something that could be called, we're not trusting our life. We're not trusting where we are. And how can we use mindfulness training and stuff around flow and things like that to get us just back into the opening layers that everything might be okay?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm very hopeful. I'm very hopeful that we're at some pinnacle, especially with the mental health crisis, that people are waking up to, that there's a better way to live, basically. There is a better way to live. For me, and it is what, really the premise of my book is about feeling fully alive. What makes you feel fully alive? What does it feel to be fully alive? And a lot of people will look at me cross-eyed. I don't know. What are you talking about? Well, what does it feel like to be awake and alive? And so you get people to start becoming familiar with what it feels like, because we haven't been taught to answer these questions. What makes you feel fully alive? I've asked this at so many, like you're talking about corporate events. What makes you feel fully alive? Hands down, almost 95% of the time it's free. It's by the ocean like me, in the mountains like you. It's, in the woods, it's with my dog, it's cooking, it's reading, it's stuff that we do all the time. We don't need to have all the stuff we think we need. That's been kind of programmed. What we need, to feel fully alive is at our fingertips. So I often recommend to people, just like you would a gratitude practice, because gratitude practice, research shows there is a neurochemical impact on our body mind when we really feel grateful, not just like, I'm grateful for my mother, I'm grateful for my car, it's like, no, really feel what you're grateful for. But to also, in addition to that, at the end of the day, just do a little count back and think about what made me feel fully alive today. What did I do? Because it's really important to become familiar with that, so that you start to I hate to use the word schedule, but you start to make those times very important in your day. Getting down on the floor and playing with the kid, the dog, getting into the woods, tending to your garden, whatever it is. And being on your bike, going for a run. Because the whole idea about mindfulness, Ed, and I think it's something that's very misunderstood out there, um, and which is why I always come back to the body. My
Me too.
meditation in Tibetan is the word gom, Gom,
Mm.
and gom translates to becoming familiar with. When I learned this from my teacher, Scott McBride, over at VERGE, he had his
Yeah.
institute there at VERGE, it changed everything for me. Meditation is about becoming familiar with. It's getting to know your mind, getting to know mental patterns, getting to know emotional patterns, getting to know your emotional tendencies, getting to know physical patterns, like in yoga.
Mhm.
Moving
Mhm.
meditation, right? A yoga practice is getting to
Mhm.
know your body in form.
Yes.
Where are you tight? Where are you strong? Where are you weak? So, meditation could be practiced in so many different elements, but not to confuse it with just sitting down, closing your eyes, and trying to stop thought, right? It really is so much more about getting to know what makes you feel alive, getting to know what doesn't make you feel alive, or who doesn't
Mhm.
make you feel alive. This
Mhm.
is the essence of becoming aware or mindful.
Boy, meditation, it takes on so many different forms. There's so many different teachers. There's so many different ways to look at it. When I was younger, I used to resist meditation because I thought it was all a mental process where you just look at your thoughts or your thoughts look at you. And I wasn't the most disciplined student in Western education, and I wasn't really turned on by it. I was more into the feeling, the kinesthetic energy, the highs, get the body going. But what I began to notice in meditation was, initially for me, for the first few years, it was all in the body. It was being described to me in my head, but all the action was down here. And it was like, wow, like you missed that by like 6 feet, and it was like, oh my gosh, this can really be, if I want it to be, about the sensations of just being still and being in my body. And whatever arises out of my body, I should probably pay attention to it, because that's what you do in your normal waking state. You move your body and you judge your level of skill.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely spot on. And this is where I said mindfulness is really misunderstood, because, and
Right.
I'm not faulting teachers for it. I just think that we have made mindfulness to become this mental strategy. And
Mm-hmm.
so my work right now is really focused on mental fitness. And I use that
Right.
phrase because I think that people can understand it. We have now gotten to the point where most people recognize that physical fitness doesn't come by just running every day, that you need to
Right.
cross train. There are different
Mm-hmm.
elements involved in becoming physically fit. Mental
Mm-hmm.
fitness is the same. There's
Mm-hmm.
a cross training element. There's breath work and sleep hygiene and maybe some cold exposure and physical exercise and mind training and gut brain optimization. And so there's all this different work that we can do, social connection, to help us become mentally fit. It's not just in your head. In fact, I say that all the time. Mental fitness is not just in your head. So my work and my passion is in helping people understand that, so that they don't think that mental fitness is just another psychological strategy. It's just changing your mindset. That's part of it, but it's not all of it. So much of it is below the neck. That's what
Right.
creates our mental clarity and acuity and flexibility. And one other thing is, I haven't done this in about a year, but I have Googled before. Maybe some of your listeners will Google it and let me know if there's anything more out there. Where do thoughts come from? How do thoughts arise? And the
Mm-hmm.
truth is, we don't know.
They don't know.
We don't know it. What we do know is it's some kind of neural synapse, right? Something
Right.
happens neurologically to it's like a burst, right? Something, but that's it. We don't know anything else, but we do know that it comes from the nervous system.
Right.
So, why would we spend all of our time up here spinning our wheels when whatever is producing this stuff is coming from below the neck? so to speak.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love asking questions that there isn't an answer for right now. And I'm okay that we don't have an answer. I think our goal as a human being to be a good parent or leader or son or daughter, is just to make sure what you're leaving behind you is an easier path than you took.
Yeah, it's nice.
And asking these bigger questions: who am I? What is my purpose? Are thoughts being created for me, or am I creating thoughts? Do I have free will, or is the free will created for me and it's just my perception that I'm choosing my moment? Or is the moment chosen for me? Is this thing all written for me? Or do I have little plays where I can interact and change the trajectory and adjust the grid of, where I've been and where I am and where I want to go? I love asking questions that don't require an immediate answer, and then I don't judge myself as being not smart or intelligent. I think the universe just wants us all to ask some really deep questions and not require an immediate regurgitation of the answer.
I love it. Yes, I absolutely adore questions, inquiry.
Yeah.
And
How are you going to learn anything new if you don't ask the different questions?
That's right. And the thing is, Ed, is that so often, in fact, one of my other meditation teachers, Adyashanti, I remember him saying, ask the question, but don't answer it.
Right.
Because the question, he said, elicits the response. In other words, there's something that is going to emerge from that question
Right.
that you asked, whether it be a thought or a sensation or something that happens
Right.
at 4 o'clock in the afternoon that answers the question you asked in the morning. So I'm with you. Just ask it and allow.
If we're in a bad mental space, or we're having, a bad run of it for a day or a couple of days, it's not the questions, it's the answers that we've been giving ourselves that have led us to this transitional trigger.
Yeah, that's great.
It's just like everybody has to understand that everything is happening for our benefit when we can get out of our own way. And how can we get, like you as a master teacher, how do we get to these peak experiences where I would just describe it as no words can describe what you're experiencing? How do we get into this on a more regular basis? Because I know hope isn't a proven strategy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've done some deep dives in flow states, and
Yeah.
I've worked with some really great researchers and teachers on flow states, Stephen Kotler and Jamie Wheel, and it comes back to becoming familiar with it. What does it feel like? Again, aliveness. When we're in flow, there is an aliveness. We may not be consciously aware of the aliveness at the time, but there is a connection with ourselves, our guitar, our surfboard, our whatever it is, our paintbrush, our work. I mean, coders get in flow all the time. So it's becoming familiar with state experience. And this is really my work, right? Helping people recognize the state, the physical, mental, emotional state they're in. Just a little bit of intelligence there, just some words. So then what happens, and it comes back to what I said before, you may know that jumping out of airplanes, it gets you into immediate flow. It probably does for everybody, but it's not something I'm going to do. No, thank you. It's just not something I need to. I've bungee jumped. I'm done. Thank you very much. Right?
Me too, man.
But I have friends that jump out of planes like every other week, because they know it's their primary flow activity or one of their primary flow activities. So if I were to ask you, Ed, I think I know a couple of the answers. What are some of the primary activities that you do that make you feel most alive?
Well, it would have to be being outside, whether I'm skiing or rowing on the water or hiking out in nature, something outside expansive.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. Right. So those are some primary flow activities. So you want to, for your own mental fitness, make sure that those activities are scheduled into your life.
Right.
One of the worst things that we've ever done is 2-week vacations, right? So people, think, okay, I've got 2 weeks to go and do all of my primary flow activities for the year. And then they spend the rest of the year miserable. What
Right.
if we recognize that yoga, deep embodiment in my body, meditation or reading, could be prayer. We all have different flavors of what makes us feel alive, grounded, connected, and to be very aware that those are your lifelines. They really are your lifelines, and we have to give ourselves permission to schedule them into our lives. Some daily, mini ones, right? Some
Hmm.
weekly, some monthly, every quarter, once a year, some big ass flow activity,
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. We're speaking of flow. We traditionally talk about the solo flow experience. How do we, as a businessman, get into that flow and create the next gadget? How do we, as an athlete, how do we go out and have the best event we ever had? How do we create flow in groups where the individual psyche or body falls away, and then we all tap in to this vibration, this frequency, where we're all coming together as in one? How do we do this with groups, Cara?
Yeah, I mean, it's not, I can speak from teaching physical disciplines, right?
Hmm.
Um, I'm not expert in group flow at work. It's just not
Hmm.
my, it hasn't been my expertise. But I will tell you that having taught 10,000 yoga classes, there's a
Hmm.
time in the class if if you're moving and breathing in rhythm, right?
Hmm.
Simple movement, simple breath, simple language, right tone of voice.
Hmm.
And it's usually about 10 to 12, 15 minutes into the class where you feel it. You
Right.
feel the group flow, you feel the group rhythm, you feel
Right.
people's breath are in sync. And I mean, you get
Hmm.
people breathing together, the heart rates are, coming into
Hmm.
resonance. I mean, brave waves are coming into
Yeah.
resonance, and there we are.
Well, we know that it takes about 6 to 8 minutes for the autonomic nervous system to shift from sympathetic to parasympathetic. We hold this tension, in our fascia all the time. It's really, when you feel that fall away and you just feel that lightness move through the soft tissue around the muscle, like you'd feel it in Shavasana, or maybe you'd feel it at some point in the class. And then if one person feels it, there's an invisible field that gives permission to the people around, if they're open to maybe feel that. And there's no words or anything. It's like a language that's spoken that we can't pick up with our five senses, but there is something as the facilitator that you pick up and you go, this is why I love me and what I do in my life, because I get to have this unbelievable human experience with
Oh,
these great folks. It has nothing to do with me.
yes,
I'm just kind of like the gatekeeper, but it's amazing to watch it and feel it.
yes. Yeah, I miss it. I miss it because I'm not actively teaching yoga right now. I miss that feeling. It was like a practice for me every time I taught.
Well, for me, like as I got out of the studio business, there was like this wave of everybody wanted to go faster.
Hmm.
And it was like, dude, we always use the practice to counterbalance what's taking place in the external environment. And if everybody's going 90 miles an hour in their head, we need to go slower. The voice in the head who's going 90, who says we have to do the faster yoga, that might work, once a week or something to get a little deeper detox. But we want to use it to counterbalance. And there was almost like this battle between like the people who wanted to go faster and the people who wanted to go slower. The feelers and the thinkers, I used to call them. And it was just to watch the whole interplay of it, like, whatever. I'm just glad you're here.
Hence some of my stress as a yoga studio owner. Yes, I know that well. I know that.
Yeah, and it's like I'm aware of it. We all want to go fast, but it makes no sense to me to go fast if you haven't mastered going slow.
Yes. Yeah.
So what's next for you? Did you have another book coming out, or are you reaching different, are you working with different modalities? I mean, tell us what's going on.
Yeah, thank you for asking. Like I said before, my primary focus is mental fitness. It's helping people
Awesome.
understand cross-training practices and protocols to feel and perform their best. And so it includes movement, breath training, nutrition, mind training for sure, social connection, but also the gut brain connection. And
Hmm.
so I am working with a company called Amari Global that is really one of the prime movers in the space of gut brain optimization. And
Hmm.
what I have learned about the connection between our gut and our brain. First of all, just so everybody knows, if you haven't heard of, what is she talking about? The science is fairly new. I mean, the yogis knew this a long time ago, and Chinese medicine, those folks knew it a long time ago. But the research is now coming on fast and strong that our gut health directly impacts our mental health. And then there's this signaling channel between the gut and the brain, which is our nervous system, the enteric nervous system,
Hmm.
and our immune system. So when we can get the gut microbiome, which is this environment of trillions of bacteria, fungi,
Hmm.
viruses, working properly, and then the signaling between the gut and the brain clearer,
Hmm.
not foggy or staticky, but because of an inflamed body, but clear, it completely changes how we feel
Hmm.
mentally. And so this has been my focus. What is mind blowing, and you may or may not know this, Ed, or others of you out there, is that 90% of our serotonin is produced in our gut. The bacteria in the gut are actually producing the serotonin and signaling up to the brain that we feel good or connected. There's 70% of our dopamine, our GABA, our norepinephrine, all of these neurotransmitters that we need for focus, for motivation, to
Hmm.
relax, are in our gut. So if the gut is in what's called dysbiosis or imbalanced,
Hmm.
most of us have imbalanced gut because of stress and environmental
Hmm.
toxins and maybe medication or poor food. Then there's going to be a mental component that is compromised. So my journey has gone from the physical muscle,
Hmm.
to the mind through meditation, down into the nervous system, and now down a level even deeper. And it is
Hmm.
so mind blowing and exciting. We are all going to be talking about this in 5 to 10 years. It's going to be, it's going to be really fun. And I'm really hopeful that as people start to learn more about how to modulate their microbiome, because I know it's been life changing for me, my own life, it's going to help all these other cross training modalities for mental fitness fall into place for them.
Amazing. I love the fact that we're on the preface of it really matters how
Yes.
you feel about things. And we're starting to understand that we are much deeper feelers than thinkers. And that all this feeling is coming up into the brain, into the central nervous system. And I just read a study the other day about the central nervous system being the brain and the spine. It's all encased in bone. And then you have this amazing vagal system, which is
Mm.
not encased in bone. And it's actually out here in the environment, reading the environment without any bone structure to protect it. There's not a lot of fat on it. And it can be
Mm.
affected either positively or negatively by what's going on in the world, a lot more than the central nervous system.
Well, that's why they call the gut the second brain, and in many ways, a lot of researchers are saying, "Wait a second, this is kind of the first brain here."
Right, right. So, is there any wisdom you could share with us before we part ways on this beautiful fall day and we
Mm.
send you back out in the Maine and whatever you're doing out in the woods there, it's got to be fun.
I'm on an island, actually. I'm
That's
on
even better.
It's a small island off of Portland. It's really wild, just for short term. Um,
Outstanding.
my goodness, any wisdom is is become familiar with yourself and what makes you come alive. And there's a great Howard Thurman quote. I can't say it all, but it's something about know what makes you come alive, because the world needs more people who have come alive. And so I botched it up, but it's kind of in that jest.
It's beautiful. It's well said. Everybody gets it. We're free thinkers here for the most part. You know, when I first met you, there was a magnetism to you, the way you held space, the way that you were such a great listener. You could communicate clearly what your intention was. And I found you very, very authentic. And it was a great just gift to have met you and share an hour of your wisdom. I learned so much. I can't thank you enough, Cara, for spending some time with me today. And I really look forward to seeing what's next in your career, because I know it's going to be earth-shattering.
Well, thank you, Ed. And I've watched you blossom as well, and so respect the work that you do. So thank you for having me.
You're the best. And as always, go be great. Thank you.